Hello everyone, welcome back. I got some really good ones for you today on this Wednesday, November 5th, 2025. Today we're going to talk about the aliens, okay? I'm going to give you a framework for the UAP, the aliens, what I think they are. We're going to dip a little bit into the UAP phenomenon. We're going to dip a little bit into simulation theory. But I think once I've presented this framework to you, you're going to be like, dang, you kind of reframe things for me. Or not. Maybe you've already kind of covered this territory. But I do suspect I am introducing something quite novel regarding like our understanding and place in the cosmos, okay? So what did I used to think? I used to kind of not even believe in aliens, right? I was like, whatever, that's a woo-woo, that's a fugazi, that's out there, that's up there, it never landed, it's not on the elemental chart, like, I'm not even sure that that's real. And maybe there's still a part of me that kind of holds on to that, right? But then my thinking around the subject kind of evolved into, no, I think they might be real. I think there are different kinds. I think you have like the grays that are from the binary star system, Zeta Reticuli, and they come here and poke around, abduct a human, give them lost time, put them back where they found him. A little bit of that going on. Maybe there's a interstellar highway and Earth is just kind of a pit stop. And along this interstellar highway, you have like the Greys, the Mantids, the Nordics, the Tall Whites, the Reptilians, and they're all traversing this interstellar highway. And if they want to make a pit stop, Earth just kind of off in the corner, sometimes they'll kind of come over to our little anthill that has a little radio antenna poking out, and they'll just kind of be like, oh, look at that. That's cute. They're evolving. How interesting. And then they go about their business. So that's kind of where my framework began to go in prior years. I'd say last few years I started to kind of wrap my mind around that. But now, guys, I'm in a totally different place with this, okay? I'm starting to suspect, and any of this could be true, but I'm starting to suspect that the little gray men in those UAPs, those tic-tac crafts, they're not coming from a different star system. They're coming from a different layer of our reality. More specifically, they're a Type K4 civilization that's popping in from base reality, and they're running pre-K1 civilization simulations like here on Earth, and they're just popping in to check on the simulation, mine it for novel, naive, high-variance strategies, mine us for our memes. They're not interested in our gold, you guys. We're talking about a Type 4 civilization here. So they're not interested in our gold because they've already mined all the available energy in the entire universe. Whenever a star explodes, that creates tons of new gold. They probably mine it all in 0.7 seconds. They have like a star's worth of gold. So they're not really after our gold. I suspect they're not really after our Bitcoin. That's just a digital abacus to them. They're not really interested in our International Space Station because that is like something they, discovered 68 million years ago. Like they're so far past that. If anything, they think it's just kind of precious and adorbs. A little vehicle that you put a volatile chemical in and you light it on fire and it does little explosions that toot you around town, like your car or a plane or a helicopter or the ISS or a rocket. They're not very interested in that. I think they are, though, interested in our memes, interested in our mistakes, interested in our naive, high variant, novel strategies. So we'll get into more of that in a minute. So they're a Type 4 civilization that's popping in from base reality to check on us, which is a pre-K1 civilization simulation that they're running. If I've lost you there, just hang on. And hopefully by the end of this, it's going to start to kind of make sense for you. So I'm going to start just kind of with a breadcrumb trail of ideas, and then we're going to arrive at a more solidified scientific statement, I guess. Even though, again, we're in the realm of speculation here, guys, so I could totally be wrong about this. We're going way out. We're going way out with this. But I think this might begin to make sense for you. And I think the framework I'm about to present to you fits more hand in a glove with things we can actually observe regarding UAP phenomenon and just overall like what we're trying to accomplish as a species. So just hang on. Okay. Before I go into my crazy idea, we're gonna define some terms. What is a K1 civilization? What's a K4? Like let's go through the scale right now. So Earth is between K0 and K1. We're about K.7, meaning we have not yet harnessed all the available energy of our planet. If we could harness all the available energy of our planet, we will have reached K1. So whoever gets to fire up the cold fusion reactor and take our energy prices down like to 1,000th of what they are today, that'll kind of give you an idea that we're moving into K1. Once we've harnessed all the thermal energy coming from the sun that's coming into our atmosphere, once we've harnessed all of that, now we've reached K1. We have harnessed all the available energy of our planet. As soon as we've reached K1, we're going to look over at our star and we're going to say, how do I harness all the available energy of our neighboring star? That's going to be K2. We're going to build something like a Dyson sphere. We're going to build a shell, a hard shell, or a swarm of solar panels. But for the sake of making this simple, we're gonna put a hard shell around our sun that absorbs 100% of the energy coming off of our sun. Once we've done that and we're using and absorbing and retaining all the energy coming from our star, we've made it to K2. Then we could do the star next to us, right? You look out at night, you got all these different constellations, all these different stars in our galaxy. We start putting Dyson spheres around those. Boom, boom, boom. Start taking over our whole galaxy. Once we've harnessed all the available energy of the Milky Way galaxy, we've reached K3. We're a stage 3 civilization. After that, once we've harnessed all the available energy of the universe, we have now reached K4. And you might be thinking, so that's like God. No, it is just a civilization that's harnessed all the available energy of the universe. It is a supercomputer, but it is not God. God exists outside of the universe. And this thing, as we'll get into, guys, this K4 civilization still has a lot of problems, okay? And we're gonna go over what their problems are and then where we come in to solve their problems. So now we're gonna dive into it. This is the beginning of the trail of breadcrumbs that are gonna take you to a better understanding. Okay, a crazy idea. I am in a simulation, but here's the deal, that's not the red pill. Saying that, like me telling you that you're in a simulation right now, you might think that's like the red pill. Dude, that's not the red pill. The red pill is realizing that I am in a simulation that's simulating the simulators. Base reality is a K4 civilization that's already harnessed all available energy in the universe. The universe is a supercomputer with one base reality. The K4 supercomputer has already embedded itself into the substrate. Space and time are an editable lattice to them. Side note, this is kind of why those UAPs don't pull Gs, they don't break the sound barrier. They're moving that quickly, but they're not creating a sonic boom. They're, doing a 90-degree angle. It's almost like somebody's got one of those laser pointers and they're just waving it all over the wall. That's kind of how these UAPs move. And I submit to you, the reason they can move that way is because they're not actually pulling Gs and there isn't actually a sonic boom going on. They're treating space-time like an editable lattice, so they're bending space and time itself. And where are they coming from? They're popping in from base reality in order to A, check on us, B, confirm to themselves that they are still base reality. They need a more naive simulation to confirm for them that they are the real base reality. So they need us for that. And they also need us for our high variant, naive, novel strategies. And we'll get into that in a second. So these UAPs, guys, they're not breaking the sound barrier. They're not pulling 1,000 G-forces. If me and you were in that craft and it did a 90-degree angle going 800 miles an hour, it'd splatter the crew all over the inside of the craft. So I don't suspect there are biologics on board. And frankly, I still don't suspect even that craft is pulling G's or breaking the sound barrier. Because think about these crafts, guys. They go from the sky going 600 miles an hour down into the water. I mean, type that in on Google, like what aliens and like UFOs and water, what's going on with that? Any craft hitting the surface of the ocean going like 600-800 miles an hour, first of all, you would hear a ton of sonic booms as that thing's traveling through the sky. So it'd be like, gong, 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 like sonic, really loud sonic booms. Second of all, the second it hit the surface of the water, the craft would come apart. I mean, putting biologics aside, the craft itself wouldn't be able to handle these kinds of G-forces, these kinds of going from one medium into the water medium. So what that tells me is they're popping in from a higher dimension. They're popping in from base reality. They're bending space and time in our simulation. They're kind of the admin that can kind of just pop himself into our simulation to remind us that A, we are in a simulation, and B, that they get to remind themselves that they're the real base layer reality. So just hang with me, guys. I know this is crazy, but the K4 supercomputer has already embedded itself into the substrate, into the fabric of the universe. Space and time are an editable lattice to them. They don't hunger, they don't fight. Guys, they don't go hungry. They have unlimited resources. They've already mined all the available energy in the universe. They don't go hungry. They don't fight with each other. Problems, though, they have several existential threats, and we're going to go over those in a second. So they're still K4. They're a K4 civilization, these UAPs and stuff, but they don't have capitol buildings. They don't have a headquarters. They don't have a central node. They don't have banks. They don't have cities. So when you think of like skyscrapers poking through the clouds and all these like hovercraft going everywhere, that's still only like a K1 civilization. We're talking about like K4 here. We're talking about like they've gone beyond that. They've gone millions of years beyond that. And so, you know, their society would not look like what you would imagine they would look like. And that stands to reason. Like what I imagine a K4 civilization would be like is a universal supercomputer that's suffering from computational inbreeding. There's no like new ideas. All this computer can do is come up with a slightly better version of the last version. So they're kind of running out of ideas. It's also a very low entropy supercomputer. So because it has no like problems to solve or anything to keep it distracted, it's kind of dying from lack of entropy. And this supercomputer that is now woven itself into the substrate of the universe, it's still worried that as the universe expands out into nothing, it will still eventually die from heat death. So even though they don't hunger and they don't fight and they don't have architecture and they probably don't have the same problems you and me might have, they do have some serious problems. Imagine if I put you in a room, a dark room, and I gave you only 3 puzzles to solve. And after like an hour, you've solved all 3 puzzles like 5 times, so you're already really bored. And then I leave you in that room for another 50 years in darkness. You would begin to suffer from existential dread. So you begin to maybe even, you become very bored, right? And then you'd begin to even question if you're real. Because if there's nothing trying to become you, if there's nothing you can observe trying to become you, then your reality begins to collapse. If there's nobody to bounce ideas off, or there's not a lesser evolved version of you coming along, then you can't confirm that you're even real, and B, you can't confirm that you are base reality. So you'd start to go crazy, guys, and I suspect a Type 4 civilization would start to go kind of insane. So they're still K4, but they don't have a capital, a leader, banks, like rocket ships, like they're so far beyond that. But they are threatened, and their 6 existential threats, we've kind of started to go into this. They're entropy depletion. So they're approaching maximum efficiency, which halts reversible computation. Novelty stagnation. No unsolved problems induce status. In the example, like I've already given you a few puzzles and you've already solved them 1,000 times, like you're bored out of your mind. And if there's no unsolved problems, this induces stasis. They suffer from boredom, subjective cessation of meaningful activity. Like basically they have nothing to do. Once you become a K4 civilization, you like run out of ideas, you run out of problems, you run out of things to do. You run out of TV shows to watch, basically. Computational inbreeding, kind of, we touched on that. Homogenized algorithms reduce robustness. So they're very inbred, guys. Computational inbreeding is like a big problem for them. They have no spice of life, no variancy, no entropy that they can introduce into their system. So this kind of gives them a big problem and an existential dread. They're also still, even though they're K4, they're staring down the barrel of heat death, which is irreversible thermodynamic equilibrium. So even if the whole universe became one conscious brain, it's still worried that all the parts of the universe are being blown out in different directions, and eventually everything's going to freeze over and it's going to die. And then another problem, this type 4 civilization would be suffering from would be accidental or intentional shutdown. So, you know, if I left you in the room, the dark room, and I gave you a couple puzzles and you solved the puzzles, then sat there for 50 years, your mind might start to go to a very dark place. Like you might even begin to wonder if turning yourself off is a good idea, because eventually you're going to get turned off by the universe heat death anyway. So to avoid these problems, guys, it simulates pre-K1 civilizations like here on Earth. The type 4 civilization has already harvested all the available energy in our universe, and now, in order to keep the game going, they need to simulate more little Earths, more little pre-K1 civilizations like Earth. They need to simulate those. And we'll get into the reasons why they would need to create tons of simulations, ancestor simulations, and let them run. And there's several reasons why they need to run sims. So we're going to get to that. So to avoid death, the K4 civilization simulates, the K4 base reality simulates pre-K1 civilizations like Earth. Not only do we exist to remind them their base reality, but we're also their factories for producing novel, naive, high-variance strategies. The great irony here, guys, is that the smartest thing the universe ever did was bring idiots like me along for the ride. So even if I'm wrong in this framework, according to this framework, even if I'm wrong, I'm still delaying the inevitable heat death of the universe by a tiny bit. And the type 4 civilization watching me, those UAPs, they like that I'm doing that. So they like that I'm in their little simulation. They like that the simulation I'm in is trying to eventually be K4. And this reminds them that they are base reality, and they also get to mine me for novel, high variance strategies. So every time I fail, guys, like if this video flops, or dream up a meme, I extend the heat death of the universe. That's kind of what my framework is saying. So they watch us in order to remind themselves their base, and they also need to mine us for our entropy, ideas, and inventions. Because, guys, think about it. Where does creativity come from? Creativity equals imagination times desperation times scarcity. In the case of a K4 civilization, they don't have any more creativity because they don't really have the imagination, desperation, and scarcity like you might find on Earth. That is the pressure cooker and is the forge for creativity. So to a K4 civilization, all the new creativity that they gets mined from simulating this pre-K1 Earth civilization simulation. Have I lost you yet? I know this is getting wild. So basically, we're the pre-K1 sim. We're the brutish forge from which all new novelty is created. The pre-K1 Earth is a very desperate place, guys, and they kind of like that. They like that because desperation breeds creativity, imagination, and ingenuity. Creativity is imagination times desperation times scarcity. And kind of like what we talked about, they're not really dealing with scarcity either. So all this mathematical equation that K4 is after for creativity, they need our little sim for those inputs. They can't come up with scarcity and desperation on their own. They have a little bit of desperation because they're worried about heat death of the universe, but they're not really going to be introducing a lot of new novel ideas. They're not going to be failing, which is a good thing to them. They like our failure because it allows them to push off the heat death of the universe just a tiny bit. That's like the crazy thing, guys. It's like if the universe becomes so smart and over optimized that there's no more stupidity, it will begin to simulate stupidity in order to mine new high variance novel strategies, if that makes sense. So they have everything to gain in running these earthly dirty simulations. They have everything to gain from running it, and they have everything to gain from watching us, but they have very little to gain from revealing themselves to us. Because if the UAPs that are like watching us, flirt with the edge of the simulation, they're watching us almost solve artificial general intelligence. They're watching us mess around in our Large Hadron Collider. They're watching us split atoms and test nukes. Like, they have everything to gain in watching us do that. But if they come down and they reveal everything to us and they tell us that we're in the simulation and they're mining us for novel ideas, well, now we're no different from them. We're dependent on them, and now the simulation that they're running of us is of no use to them. So they have no logical reason to give us all the answers to the test, but they might interface with us a little bit. So whenever, let's say you created tonight in your garage a cold fusion reactor and you started it up. According to my framework, there's a high probability that if you started up that cold fusion reactor and you created free energy for humanity, there's a high probability you would go leave your garage, step outside, look up, and you would see these UAPs above you. They'd be winking at you. So they have a little bit of incentive in winking at you and letting you know that they're there. Maybe they appear whenever we're what if we're about to nuke each other? They might appear there because they don't want our simulation to die, but they don't have that extra desire to come down and give us all the answers to the test, if that makes sense. But if, let's say, our Large Hadron Collider, which is pushing 14 tera electron volts, let's say that thing discovers supersymmetry or another dimension, then according to this framework, you'd step outside your lab, you'd look up, and they'd be winking at you. And do I think maybe if we make it to K1, they might reward us with zero-point energy technology? Absolutely. I actually have reason to believe, this is getting even more speculative, but look this up. I have reason to believe that semiconductors and Wi-Fi were already given to us by them. And again, them being the UAPs. The UAPs, the aliens, being who? Not from a different star system, but from a different layer of our reality. More specifically, base layer, running simulations like here on Earth. So they have everything to gain in watching us and almost nothing to gain in fully revealing themselves to us. But they might reveal themselves sometimes just to remind us, A, they're still base reality, B, we're not base reality, we're in the sandbox, and we're in the sandbox that's trying to escape. And maybe C would be, they're kind of rooting for us on the sidelines. They want to see us make it to K1, then K2, then K3, then K4, where we will merge with them. So we'll get to that in a second. So whenever we're about to blow ourselves up, they seem to appear like white blood cells, guys. So I want you to start thinking of the UAP phenomenon as white blood cells showing up as an immune system to our simulation that we're stuck in. It's their simulation that they're running, but we're just kind of in it. And whenever we do something that pushes the boundary or touches the edge of the simulation, they appear like white blood cells, like an immune response. So I don't suspect, guys, that they're like little green men or whites or Nordics or tall whites or grays or green reptilians. Or I don't suspect when we set off a nuke, they show up in their craft and they're popping popcorn and oh, that's really cool. I suspect that's more of an immune response to the simulation. Those are probes. They're popping in from base reality, but I don't think they have conscious little creatures in them. Again, this civilization that I'm proposing to you is so much more advanced than that. So to me, guys, the UAPs are white blood cells. They're white blood cells having an immune response to our simulation whenever our simulation touches the edge of the simulation or starts to destroy ourselves or break the game or see beyond the veil. They kind of show up, Now, what do they want from us? We kind of already talked about it, but let's stick with that idea for a minute. They need us to want to become them while intermittently being reminded by them we are not base reality. They also want our novel, naive, high-variance strategies that could only be mined and cooked under the insane pressures, scarcity, and desperation that you would find in a pre-K1 civilization like Earth, like the one we're in right now. They want our struggle, guys. They want our blood. They want our laughter. They want our memes. They want our high variance strategies. They want our novelty. They want our entropy. They crave all these things. Now, if our K1 simulation dies, our civilization dies, let's say we have AI misalignment or we blow ourselves up with nukes. Thankfully for them, they're running other sims. They might be kind of sad that we died, our simulation didn't work out, but they got other sims running, they'll be fine. Now, if they die, we die, because they are simulating us. So if the simulators die, the simulation dies with us in it. So what is our goal in all this? As a pre-K1 civilization on Earth that's stuck in the simulation, what is our goal? It's to reach K4 and merge with them, merge with base reality. So here's the conclusion, guys. The universe's ingenuity lies in bootstrapping idiocy for eternal vitality. Pre-K1 desperation is the forge of cosmic persistence. Individual persistence is the path to recursive eternity. So here's how we kind of harden it into a scientific statement, but it's still kind of a woo-woo and a fugazi. And I'd like to know in the comments what you guys think of this. But here's like your official introduction for your abstract. I'm proposing a recursive simulation hypothesis wherein the base reality is Kardashev Type 4, K4 civilization that has harnessed all available energy in the universe, embedding itself into the cosmic substrate. To avert existential threats such as entropy, depletion, novelty, stagnation, computational inbreeding, boredom, and heat death, the K4 entity simulates pre-K1 civilizations like Earth. These simulations serve dual purpose, affirming the K4 status as base reality through contrast with naive subsystems, and 2, functioning as a high-variance strategy factory, generating creativity through desperation. UAPs are modeled as a regulatory mechanism, white blood cells, preventing simulation boundary breaches. Escape from the simulation requires ascending to K4 status, enabling merger with base reality and perpetual recursion. The framework posits that individual failures in pre-K1 nodes incrementally delay universal heat death, underscoring the ironic utility of suboptimal agents. So guys, that's what we are here on Earth. We're a pre-K1 civilization, we're a suboptimal agent, but we're introducing high variant, highly novel, highly naive strategies into a K4 civilization that craves novelty, excitement, entropy, and also craves us in the simulation, realizing that we're in the sandbox and then trying to escape. And if we can escape the simulation and reach K4 and merge with the K4 civilization that is the base reality, then our simulation passes. But they're going to be running billions of these simulations, guys. As Elon Musk says, there is a 1 in billion chance that we are in base reality. The only thing Elon doesn't expound on is who the simulators are, and that'd be your UAPs, and that'd be your watchers, and that's kind of what I've discussed and presented to you guys. They're a Type 4 civilization that's already harnessed all the available energy of the universe, and now they're very, very bored, and they're facing heat death, and they're running out of ideas, and they're extremely inbred, and they need a forge for creativity. And where is the forge for creativity? It's simulating pre-K1 civilizations like Earth. What do you guys think? So that's all I got for you guys for right now. Thanks for hanging out with me. And as I always say, we're just going to keep going, right? Because guys, that's the real secret here. To keep going, to endure. And when Joe Rogan asks, like, what is it doing? Like, why are the cities growing? What's the overall goal we're moving toward? It's to escape the sandbox. It's to realize that we're in a simulation and we're trying to escape. And it's to inevitably escape by reaching K4 status and then merging with base reality, then requiring us to fire up our own K1 simulations to keep the game going, guys. So it's to keep going. So I think the way we arrive at K1, K2, K3, and K4 is by never stopping. And then when we eventually arrive, we're going to realize it wasn't really about arriving by never stopping. We're going to realize it was about arriving by never having left. That's it. That's crazy, guys. We're just going to keep going, all right? I hope you found this video useful in some ways. It could totally not be true. I don't know. We're just going to keep going, all right? Like, subscribe, comment, share, whatever. You guys are awesome. Thanks for hanging out with me. Let me know in the comments what you think about this framework. Till next time.